Hello and welcome to Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid, the podcast that explores sustainable solutions to the most pressing issues facing our communities and planet today. I'm Planet Aid's Communications Manager, Haley Chitty, and I'm going to turn it over to our host, Planet Aid's Communication and Content Specialist, Monica Johnson. I'll jump back in later to ask a few follow-up questions. Monica, take it away.
Thank you, Haley, and welcome to Sustainable Solutions with Planet 8. I'm Monica Johnson, and I'm going to be your guide for this journey as we take challenging situations and try to simplify them. And it's also an opportunity to learn from incredible individuals and organizations at the forefront of developing and implementing sustainable solutions. And change is not only possible, but it is essential, and it begins with understanding. We have a great show for you today, and we're talking to Nile Luna, a K-12 environmental educator from Green Design Lab at Solar One. And we're also joined by Planet Aid's own School and Community Programs Manager. And she's going to be joining us today because Solar One and Planet Aid have a great team up that they're going to be doing later on in the school year. So we're going to go ahead and jump into this and kind of kick it off with talking to Nile. Nile, how are you today?
I'm great, Monica. Thank you for asking. How are
Oh,
you?
no problem. So, Niall, want to just ask you about Solar One. What is the mission of Solar One?
Thank you for asking. I'm really grateful to be working at Solar One. We are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to provide educational services, workforce training, and also solar installation technical services to diverse urban communities. And we do that in New York City and also parts of New Jersey. So
Very
we
good.
do this through a multitude of programs that we have. We have a green workforce training program where we train underemployed adults on things like solar installation and HVAC. We also have solar installation technical assistance through our Here Comes Solar program. We have an eco park stewardship with Sty Cove Park in New York City, and that's a great place. We're also building a new educational building there that's going to be open next summer. And lastly, the Green Design Lab. So that's where we implement our K through 12 environmental education curriculum.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about that, your role. Specifically, what do you do with the Green Design Lab?
Yeah, so with the Green Design Lab, I am a K through 12 environmental educator. So my role is to do residencies. In this residency, we go to different schools, libraries, and other programs where kids are going to be there during the school year. And we provide some education on climate and energy. And this is just to get kids familiar with like what is energy, where does it even come from, what is climate, and why is it important to think about climate as you're living on the day to day. So yeah, we have these programs throughout the five boroughs in New York City, and also we have educators in New Jersey as well.
How how familiar are the kids when they come in and try to learn about these different energy sources?
So, depending on the grade level, some kids are more familiar than others. Also, sometimes there are kids who have their hand raised nonstop, and I'm like, your parent must be a scientist or an engineer, aren't they? And oftentimes they are. So, some kids are pretty knowledgeable, but most of the time, in general, a lot of kids are taking in a lot of new information. They don't necessarily know where electricity comes from, although we all use it every day. They don't know like the impacts of electricity and where our electricity comes from. So, yeah, a lot of the times this is new information to students, and it's really cool being able to do hands on activities and seeing their brains light up as they understand how electricity works and how that impacts the environment.
Solar energy is a renewable energy source. So, what's so important about that?
Yeah, so solar energy as a renewable energy source is really important. It's on the up and up in the recent years, so more people are installing solar energy services. And this is because it's a great renewable energy option. And when we talk about renewable energy, on the other hand, we have non renewable energy. So, non renewable energies, these are things like coal, natural gas, and oil. These are fossil fuels. Right now, and for the past 1 to 200 years, we've been burning these fossil fuels in order to get our electricity. Now, this isn't really good for the environment. When we burn these fossil fuels, they release a lot of CO2 up into the air, so carbon dioxide. And this is a greenhouse gas. So, too much of this greenhouse gas is leading to global warming. So, it's making the Earth's temperature slowly go up and up. And then this is contributing to climate change. So, this is the impact of non renewable energy sources. Now, if we source our electricity from renewable energy sources, these are things like the sun, the wind, and water. We can get electricity from these energy sources, and they use significantly less greenhouse gas emissions in the production and lifetime of using these energy sources. So
Okay.
there's really a less greater environmental impact when we use solar panels to get electricity, as opposed to getting it from a power plant that burns fossil fuels.
So the Department of Energy, on their energy.gov website, they say that the benefits of solar energy include reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as you were saying, um, and also mitigating climate change, which they also say is critical to protecting humans, wildlife, and ecosystems. So could you elaborate on that? Because that's a whole lot, and it seems like we're responsible for a whole lot if we're just looking at those sections.
Yeah, absolutely. It does seem like we're responsible for a whole lot. When we talk about climate change, right, we talk about human induced climate change. So these are climate changes that are coming about because of the way that we've been sourcing electricity for the past 1 to 200 years. Um, so we are responsible for a lot of the effects of climate change, but we also want to introduce climate optimism to the scene, right? We can do something about this. And one of the things we can do is, as quickly as possible, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. Now, this is because these greenhouse gases, they're contributing to climate change, right? So the more we pump into the air, the worse the effects of climate change are going to get. So when we talk about mitigating effects of climate change, there are a lot of different things that impact people's climate, and climate is site specific, right? So the climate change that we're going to see in New York is different from the climate change in Florida, from California, and from other parts of the world. So when we reduce greenhouse gas emissions, we're reducing the catastrophic effects of climate change from happening. If if greenhouse gas emissions continue going as they are going now and as they're projected to, then we're more likely to see more catastrophic effects of climate change. And these things are like high sea level rising, increased floods in areas of the world, higher temperatures both on land and in the ocean. So this also affects ocean life, more frequent and severe storms, such as hurricanes, tsunamis, etc. So these are things that are going to be both impacting human ecosystems that are man made and also natural ecosystems that our animals and plants rely on. Yeah, so these are human caused things that are going to be affecting both humans and animals, but we can reduce the most catastrophic effects from happening. And that is by reducing our greenhouse gas emissions.
You used a word that I have never heard before, and there's a lot of climate everything out there: climate finance, climate resilience, climate adaptation. You said climate optimism.
Mm.
And why do you think there was a need for that? Do you think that there has been an approach that the sky is falling and people get sick of hearing that, or what? Why is climate optimism something that has worked its way into the vernacular?
Yeah. So climate optimism is really important because sometimes when you, especially when it comes to K through 12 education, so imagine telling someone below the age of 18, all these things are doomed to happen in our future. Sea levels are rising, the earth is getting hotter, et cetera, et cetera. And this is due to human activity. This can be a little bit overbearing. It can also make someone feel like, well, what can I even do about that? So we want to introduce climate optimism as a way of saying, hold on, we're not doomed. We can overcome this. We have faced environmental issues in the past, maybe on a larger scale than climate change, and we have like come over those obstacles, whether it be through communities coming together or laws being implemented. So we want people to understand, yes, climate change can sound a little scary, but there are certain steps that we can take to mitigate the effects of climate change. Yeah, so
Very
climate
good.
optimism, because we can do it. We can tackle this issue. It doesn't have to be so scary all the time.
Okay. One of the educational components of Solar One is the Green Design Lab, as we were talking about. So it promotes experiential learning through science, technology, and design. And the Green Lab also offers many sustainable solutions through awareness and knowledge. And I noticed one of the projects is professional development for teachers, and it provides a hands-on activities in labs and one of the things that I was thinking about is because Planet 8 also has teacher training. So why is training teachers prioritized for Solar One Green Design Lab? And I wanted to mention that because, that is, we believe in training teachers as well. So
Mm.
what, why is that prioritized?
Yeah, so from my perspective, the Green Design Lab and Solar One prioritizes training teachers. And as I mentioned, we don't just train teachers, right? We also train green workforce individuals in other sectors of our company. But in general, we want to train people to take this with them as well. Because I can come into your classroom for a day and tell your kids, what is climate change? Where does energy come from? And why is that important? Right? But students have these teachers that they're building relationships with, and these teachers can also have relationships with generations of students, not just one class that I'm seeing on one day. So I think it's really important to be able to give teachers knowledge and access to these activities about energy and the climate, and for them to be able to take that to their classroom to see what's applicable, and to see what they feel is essential to passing down to their students. And this is in the hopes that we can not only impact one class, but impact several classes and several generations of students who grow up to be more environmentally conscious and aware of their impacts in the world.
Great. Okay. Tell us about some of the other programs and the general reception from those who participate. How are
Yes.
people taking this in and saying how it affects them and how they pass on the information?
Yeah, so from my personal experience in being in classrooms, I love seeing students like react to my lessons because they're always like, whoa, they take something with them. They're like, am I going to see you again? Is this your last day here? I think that they really enjoy like fun activities that introduce them to the environment and climate and energy. Um, but in general, we have a few different programs. Like I forgot to mention, our CTE team. We have career and technical education. So this is a part of our education team, and they focus on just high school students. And they, over the course of a week or two, allow high school students to install their own solar panel system. So this is connected to batteries, an inverter, etc. They can plug their phone in at the end and see that their solar system is working. And then at the end, they take it apart. So we have different programs such as this one to introduce students to what it would be like to work in a green field. Um, for example, solar installation. We also have certain programs where schools reach out to us and they want to partner with us. So, for example, my coworker Phil, he went to the Harbor School on Governor's Island recently, and he installed a water pump that is powered just by solar. So powered by solar panels, yeah. So students are able to like from first view see what it's like to install solar systems, what it's like to work in renewable energy, and then take that for themselves, see if that's something that they'd be interested in the future and also in the outside world. So I have one quote that I'd like to share from a teacher who gave this review this past year.
Sure.
This teacher said, I always look for opportunities to enrich the curriculum and make connections between what I teach in the classroom and the world outside my room. This was perfect. So, yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for students to hands on connect what we're learning about in the classroom and then connections to the real world and the environment that they interact with daily.
I love that because teachers really do make a difference in so many different ways. So, you never know if you're introducing science to somebody who will take it and just go invent the next whatever great thing. So I love that. Um, so speaking of, you were talking about activities and doing different activities. And I know for a fact that you and Christina met doing some activities at a STEAM expo. So I'm going to say to Christina, how did this all come about? Because, you being at the STEAM expo and Nile being at the STEAM expo, I'm sure that you were busy, but how did you all kind of get together and figure out that you'd like to work together?
Yeah, so we were at the STEAM Expo, like you mentioned, at PS14, the Fairview in Queens. And this is a school that came to my attention because they had this wonderful community garden project that actually made the news. And then the more research that I did on them, come to find out they're on like the cutting edge of being sustainable and teaching sustainable practices in the school. And also the teacher, shout out to Bianca Biblioni at PS14. She has a wonderful curriculum that she puts together and implements. So when I had the chance to go there and contribute to the STEAM Expo, Nile with Solar One was there, and we were neighbors. We were neighboring tables, and we just got the talking about our companies and really the big emphasis on educating students about sustainability. And we're launching the Planet Aid Scholars Club in the next school year, and Planet Aid has been around for 25 years, and we've had a school program, and the school program was a lot of fundraising and some clothing drives, but we wanted to kind of bring a more robust program where we're actually getting to students at the core. Why is it important to be sustainable? Yes, you can recycle your clothing and shoes, but why does that matter? Why does every little bit matter? So with the Scholars Club, we're going to be doing the monthly lesson plans and the monthly eco challenges. And I thought with Solar One, who's also really big on educating students, it would be really great to collaborate on this very first lesson and kind of present something together.
Very good. So, what are some of the common threads between Planet Aid's mission for school and community programs and also Solar One's mission?
Well, of course, the educational aspect, but now I was just talking about the hands on aspect with the CTE program and installing the solar panels. And something we're trying to do at Planet Aid is making the donation, the clothing and shoe donation aspect, we want to make it more hands on. The bin is a very hands-on project. Student groups can take that and do clothing drives, promote it to their local community. They can do all sorts of things with that and learn a lot of things about what it takes to organize an event, what it takes to promote it, what it takes to spread the word about why that's important. But we also want to do other hands-on activities that gets into the details of what sustainability is. And so that's really the common thread, being hands-on and getting kids as early as possible to understand why this is important.
Great. Now, why did you think this partnership might be a good fit?
Yeah, so to add on to what Christina said, I thought this partnership would be a good fit because I just saw, like, being at the STEAM Expo, I saw the way students loved engaging with their activity and the hands on aspect of it and just the promotion of sustainability in general. I think it's very important when it comes to environmental education to introduce students to the whole life cycle of things, right? So everything you have comes from somewhere and then it goes somewhere once you're done using it. And so students can be more mindful of this, then hopefully that can implement more sustainable practices on the day to day. And I thought that Planet Aid and the Green Design Lab do that in slightly different ways, but we can learn from each other as well as we both implement and add to our curriculum.
Christina, Solar One's lesson is the first to kick off the curriculum for the Scholars Club, and it's geared toward teaching the next generation, of course, about responsible consumption. So, could you kind of expound on that, if you will?
Yeah. So our very first official lesson will be in September of the 2024-25 school year. And it is about what is a carbon footprint and how do you reduce it. So the lesson will be focused on teaching kids about what a carbon footprint is, which is, how much greenhouse gas is being generated from the activities you do. And why we need to reduce it and how we can reduce it. And Niall was speaking earlier about what was it? I wrote it, the climate optimism. So we kind of want to have this take where it's okay, these are the things you want to avoid, but what can you do and why it's important. So we're going to be talking about all the ways you can reduce your carbon footprint, and then Solar One will be contributing their portion about what it means to, what that has to do with your energy, how you can do that with energy. And they'll be contributing a lesson on that. And hopefully a video. We're hoping to collaborate a video as well.
Very good. And I think about this, Niall, and consumption as far as electricity or any kind of other energy source, we don't think about that as much. You can tell with textiles and you can tell with clothing and things like that. But tell me a little bit about how we can think differently about how we're consuming our energy.
Mm. Yeah, so Um, I think working with Solar One and being given the opportunity to really understand where our energy comes from and introducing kids at different age levels to that has been really vital in me understanding like the life cycle process when it comes to sustainability as a whole. So when it comes to energy, our energy comes from somewhere. It doesn't just show up at our house, at our outlets, right? It's produced somewhere, and then it comes to us. So there's manufacturing, like greenhouse gas emissions. There's greenhouse gas emissions when we're actually using the energy, the way that the energy was produced. Um, and then when it comes to different components in electricity or energy production as well, then there's the waste aspect. So what are we doing with the waste components of electricity? So there's a whole life cycle assessment of how electricity and energy is used. And as I said previously, I think it's really cool introducing kids to it's not just you use electricity and then it's done. It comes from somewhere. And so you should be mindful that it's not finite, right? Like you said, we don't really think about our energy consumption. And I think it's also important because I always tell kids this like, do we think we're going to use more or less energy in the future? And they all say more. And they're all right. It's true. We don't want to give up our electronics as a society, our technological advancements, or something that we're not really willing to give up. But we can find healthier ways to source this electricity for the planet and also for our ecosystems and other species on the planet. So, yeah.
And I'm just going to ask this to both of you. What do you want the students to learn from this upcoming lesson?
I want them to know that their small actions can lead to big change. That's the big takeaway. Just turning off the lights when you leave the room, using better energy sources, consuming less. That's a big one. Just needing less so that factories don't have to produce and use resources to make more, 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 more. All these little things, when you are conscious about the things that you do in your day to day life, can really lead to big results in the future. And that's the big takeaway I want them to leave with.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I want students to know on the aspect of climate optimism that there are small things that you can do to make a difference. And even if you don't think it's a big thing, you can like influence someone else to do it. And so it's not just your impact, it's the way you influence other people and the way that you interact with the environment that can change your community, your city, maybe eventually the world, you know. So it's not just small changes, it's small changes that can lead to something bigger.
Very good. And in all transparency, to be a sustainable solution, that means that the sourcing of minerals and other resources should also be sustainable. So, we talked earlier about this and we discussed this topic concerning solar panels. I thought you were very poignant about. Making some points about solar panels because they are a lot of times mined in countries where children are working in mines and less than $1 of day wages, which exploits people in desperate financial situations. So how would you say the industry in general, and Solar One being a part of the industry, is working to kind of change these conditions?
Yeah, so I know on Solar One's part, so the thing that I like to tell people is we don't manufacture solar panels, nor do we install them. We get a few to provide workforce training and other types of training, and then we also provide installation services. So we like get people access to solar credits or solar panels in their communities. I think the solar industry is kind of like how people saw natural gas as a transition fuel. Solar can also, it is in a transitional phase and it can be improved upon, but it is better than what we currently use.
Mhm.
We can definitely improve upon the mining practices that are used to get materials for solar panels. Some ways that the solar industry is trying to do that is by increasing the lifetime of solar panels. So, like you said, this would decrease the amount to extract more resources. If they have longer lifetimes, we won't need as many resources. And also, hopefully, as these things become more mainstream, as light is shown onto how these minerals are extracted, there can be some like laws that come into play that prevent children from being the ones who work in these mines. But unfortunately, mining is seen as a solution, kind of, to the way that we get our energy because mining is essential to getting energy, but we can do it in a better way. And one other thing that I read that I really like are rehabilitation programs. So if you mine a land and there's community around that land, like people who live there, you can go into that land after you're done mining and rehabilitate it back to its original state. Work with community members and see what their community needs and what they should get out of the mining because they were most impacted by it. Yeah, so I think working with the land and community members after something is done to the environment to bring it back to its original state is really important because that's what sustainability is, right? It's making sure that future generations are not being impacted by our current practices. And so I think working with the people that are being most directly affected to see how we can least impact them negatively would definitely be key to improving our mining practices when it comes to solar panels.
Very good. Thank you for that because I love the fact that you wanted to take that question on because many people probably wouldn't want to answer that, but it's important because
Hmm.
it's the whole process that we're looking at in order to make these sustainable solutions come to pass. So with that said and done, I'm going to kick it over to Haley. Haley, any
Great.
questions?
Yeah, so many. I really appreciated the climate optimism piece. We're always discussing these serious issues on this podcast, and I'm always surprised at the optimism from everyone that we have. So, I look at some of these subjects and I'm going, "Oh man, that might be a little bit." Sad to talk about, but then everyone's so hopeful when they're coming up with these solutions. That aside, one of the things that really impresses me about the approach of your organization is how holistic it is throughout the pipeline, from the K through 12 to technical training to the installation services. I just Can you talk a little bit about why it was so important to kind of touch every part of the pipeline in terms of solar energy?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think when it comes to solar energy in general, right? Well, not just when it comes to solar energy, when it comes to our environmental impacts as a whole. So there's this thing called environmental justice slash environmental injustice. And environmental injustice basically says that the people who are being most affected by climate change and other environmental impacts are not the people who are causing climate change, but they are people being most impacted by it, right? So through our workforce training programs and our K through 12 education, we want to target people who are in environmentally injustice communities and people who don't necessarily feel like they can do something about the climate crisis. We want to give them the tools to know that they can. And we do this through technical assistance, career readiness. So, green careers, we teach people what green careers are and the growth rate in green careers and how you can get yourself in a green career. And I think it's really important to give people the opportunity to know here's this information about how energy is made and how it works and how it impacts us. And now you can do with it whatever you want. Whatever your interest may be, you can take that into your future and tweak it and just make sure that in any way you can, just be a more environmentally mindful person. Just work towards sustainable practices in whatever way you can.
Here, here. I'm just wondering, are you seeing perceptions of solar and other green careers changing? And how are those perceptions changing?
Yeah, I think those perceptions are changing. I think there's a lot more awareness now on green careers. Also, there's a lot more availability for green careers. The green career growth rate is projected to be higher than a lot of other careers. So, when it comes to wind turbine technicians, solar insulation installers, HVAC technicians, these career rates are growing really fast compared to many other careers. So we see there's going to be a big opening for green careers in the future. And yeah, so introducing students to that and people who are in the workforce to that, hopefully will just make them more environmentally conscious in whatever choices they make throughout their career.
And this is for both of you, really. I'm communication, so I'm always interested in messaging and what resonates with, kids and younger generations. So I'm just wondering if you guys, I hate to put you on the spot, but if you can think of a messaging, one or two that you notice is really effective with today's youth.
I've noticed a lot of the kids, especially at the high school level, they're aware that they can mobilize and that they can be the ones to make a difference. And there's this great book, it's actually for elementary students, called Old Enough to Make a Difference. And it has all these stories of young kids who are doing things that are environmentally positive, from opening sustainable clothing brands to well, that's the only one I can really think of right now, but there's a bunch, I promise. But it's very clear when I work with schools that the kids know that they can do it. We have a lot of our programs being promoted and sort of like managed by student groups, whether it's student government groups or the National Honor Society or even like an Eagle Scout group. They know that they are able to spread messaging through their awesome tech skills, and that if they care, they can get other people to care.
Yeah, that was an awesome point. Solar One does something similar. So we have a youth advisory council made up of high school students in the city. And they did awesome work in developing a curriculum that they feel is needed in high schools and for students their age level. So they did this through surveying students in their schools as to what they feel is missing when it comes to climate education. And they developed curriculum on their own that we are reviewing with them. So they're seeing how they can improve on climate education, and then we're seeing how we can bring that to high schools as well. So we're getting firsthand information from students on what they feel is missing. So that, like I said, they can then take that upon themselves. We can fill in the gap to make students feel like we're giving them the full scope of what is happening and the full potential to do something about it. So it's really awesome seeing students like have the power to mobilize and to do their own climate education because they're becoming more aware of the problems and also more aware that they are the solution as well.
Yeah, it really reminds me. I visited the Queens Metropolitan High School, that environmental group, and met with that group of kids, and they were showing me all the stuff they did. But one thing that they did was it's just really incredible. I just didn't do this stuff when I was in high school. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't care enough back then, and they really do. But one thing is that they wanted to reduce the number of water bottles going into the trash and recycling, and they noticed that their water fountains didn't have filters. So they actually made a QR code and put it on every water fountain, that all the kids could scan it and put in a survey or petition to say we want a filter on these water fountains. And I'm not sure if that went through or not, but I thought that was really incredible and took a lot of coordination and thought to do that. But they advocated for themselves.
Again, really hopeful and optimistic way to sort of end this one. I last just kind of question and kind of maybe a throwaway, but I'm just wondering why New York, and do you have plans to expand to other areas? So maybe just a little background there.
Yeah, so I think why New York? When it comes back to the history of Solar One was founded after Hurricane Sandy. So there were community members who lost power, and this one little tiny shack was Solar One in the beginning. There were solar panels, and community members could come and charge their devices off of it. So I think Solar One realized the potential for renewable energy in urban communities, and climate resiliency in urban communities is huge because there are millions of people living inside of cities. And climate resiliency looks different in a city than it does to a wetland, than it does to a forest, etc. So, yeah, I think it's really interesting to see how people can mobilize together and use like knowledge on electricity and energy to change how the energy sector is going to work in the future. Right now, we like focus on New York City. We also have educators who work in New Jersey. So we have educators who mainly focus on Newark, in that part of New Jersey. I think it would be awesome to have Solar One expand. I'm like not in control of that, but I think it would be awesome. I know there are a bunch of other educational programs too across the country that introduce students to sustainability and the environment and why it's important to take care of it. But yeah, I have the pleasure right now of traveling across the five boroughs and going into classrooms and seeing students realize how energy works and how they like can impact the environment. So I think it's really cool being able to do that here, and I'd love to be able to do that in different parts of the country as well.
That's all I have. Monica, you want to take it back?
All right. Well, thank you so much. We want to thank our guest today, Nile Luna, from Solar One and the Green Design Lab, also Christina right here from Planet Aid. And we want to thank you for joining us for this episode of Sustainable Solutions with Planet Aid. And we hope you've been inspired by the ideas that we've explored today. And we encourage you to search for sustainable solutions that you can pursue so you can be a good steward in your neck of the woods and beyond.
Thank you so much, Monica. A few reminders on the way out. If you want to stay connected with us and stay informed, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and please share it with your friends, family, and colleagues. Together, we can make a big difference. And remember, change starts with awareness and action. So let's keep the conversation going. Feel free to reach out to us on social media or through our website and share your thoughts, ideas, and stories with us. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember, it's a big world out there, but every small change counts. Together, we can build a better, more sustainable future.